So I had this wonderful artist, Jack Johnson, doing in the beginning some production paintings. They helped me a lot to get a feeling for how the movie could look like. Not necessarily storyboards or something what actually I would really use later on. It's more like to as I said, a look at the feel of the movie. They are pretty large, these paintings. For example, this first one is just an impression of the sailing boat in high seas, how that could look like. This one, for example, was the first impression when I first went to Gloucester. I had the feeling that on a different spot we could build a huge, on the right side, all that would be built on a huge kind of a dock in the middle of the harbor. Later on then I decided for the actual film, to use a smaller dock. It was a little bit more rundown, and it would also save some cost because we would not have to build this entire right side with all these buildings there. And so I decided to do it in a smaller scale. And also I thought it would fit the story better. Another painting he did for me with the ships in the foreground. So that was still the old concept with that big pier in the middle of the harbor, where I would then see Gloucester in the background. You see that the swordfish is coming out of the boat, so it would be sort of the unloading scene. But I think the scenario we have now with that more rundown dock is a better one. That's sort of the first idea, first kind of feel about the last wave. I said that I had this from the very beginning in my head, how this could be this little boat trying desperately to climb up this final wave. And you see, it's pretty much the way it ended up to be in the movie, just the other way around. The boat goes left to right now in the movie. Continuation of the same thing. Originally, though, we had the idea of the boat will go sort of totally upside down and will sort of fly down, but I think it was not realistic. So the way it is now in the movie, that just slides down and then gets hit by the wave that crests over the boat is the more realistic idea. It's another shot of the, just an atmospheric kind of thing of the Andrea Gail being in high seas, and you get a little bit of the feeling of Bobby being up there and the antenna thing, how that could look like. So I always like these colored paintings. Same thing here. Remember from the film when they decide to go all the way into the storm, when they are on the Flemish Cap. This is how it all started, that we say, okay, let's have a shot of that tiny little boat. And the sky we see is sort of a very bad sky, and they decided to sail right into it. This was his first painting of that. The sky is not very bad, of course, as you see. So in the final movie, it is much more dramatic than that. Just a study of water in heavy storms. I would say these are easily like probably 80-foot waves. Material like that also was important for ILM to get, so that they kind of get the mood, also for John Seal, the cinematographer, to think about coloring and all that kind of stuff. So you see, that's a first very early painting of Bobby watching the boat going down. It's pretty much the way it is later on in the movie. When I see this again, because this was so early on, I'm really actually surprised how accurate some of that is compared with what we had a year and a half or later in the movie. This is, for example, also pretty close to the situation what's later on in the film. It's part of the night scene when Murph goes overboard and gets the hook in his hand. So it's this mood, I think, is basically also in the film. It's another shot of, he did, Johnson, another painting, Jack Johnson, with the helicopter guys. We were trying to find a way to make sure that it's almost an impossible task for the helicopter guys to really maneuver properly in these huge waves, because you see that the blades is hitting the waves there. I think it's something what we did later on in the movie as well. Here is the first try to think about maybe introducing other boats into the film. We later on, as you know, ended up doing the big ships like the container ship and the tanker. But we started already thinking about also introducing other boats. Another painting here of the sailing boat Mistral. in sort of medium-sized seas. Again, a different colorization of the water, a different sky, because we experimented a lot with our painted backings for the stage to get different sky colors. Later on, he did that, John Seale, basically with different lights on the backings. I think he decided to go with a more gray overall painting of the backings, and then he would colorize it with special colored light he put on it. Here you see that is a different shot now, much more dramatic, of the boat going right into the black sky. That it comes closer to the situation we have in the film. This painting is, again, is fairly close to what we have in the movie toward the very end, when the boat is for a moment in the eye of the storm, so to speak, when the sun breaks through and we have for the moment the feeling that they might make it. That's a very good painting. Yeah, another painting here. You see a little bit over-dramatized. Sometimes they'd like to do that a little bit over the top when Murph goes overboard, when his hand is hooked, and sort of the way we did it in the movie. Here's a shot, a feeling of how it could look like when the set is upside down and toward the end of the movie, and our people are swimming here and the water is coming up, is rising. Here's a painting of the end of the movie when Ethel and Chris are sitting there watching boats going out. This would be the Hannah Bowden, the second boat going out to sea. We staged that a little differently, but it's a painting, so it should more give you an overall feeling of the mood of it. Kind of nice. This is, again, very similar to what we later on did in the movie. Here I asked him to paint for me the morning after they put the first long line in at night, the early in the morning, how it would look like when the boat comes back to the beginning of the long line, sort of an interesting dawn mood. And it's very similar to the mood we have in our movie. This is a painting about the outrigger scene. You see George Clooney hanging there on the outrigger, and you see the light trying to find him, and you see this wildly swinging bird, how we call that, this kind of anchor-like thing. And this, for an early painting, hits it quite well, the drama of the situation. These are paintings Jack did, again, for the Murph scene with the hook in his hand. And what we tried there is, actually we were not too successful in the movie later on to really get it to still feel in the background the body of the boat. It never really worked that well the way he had painted it. We tried to get it, but I think we only got it in one or two shots, but not as much as I would have liked it. But you don't get everything. Now this is the new concept of the more rundown dogs. On the left side of the shot, you see the dogs that we actually used and the painting of the crow's nest. And the crow's nest originally, if you go down to Gloucester now, where the crow's nest now is, the building there, is just a pretty, flat, uninteresting, rundown little building. And we put our crow's nest, build it, so to speak, on top of it. And as I said, if tourists want to go there and see the crow's nest there because they know it from the movie, it's not there. Will be a little bit of a letdown. But all the other stuff is there, the dock and everything. We did not change much there. It looks pretty much in the film the way it is in reality. This was an old crow's nest thing. We tried to build it on a different position and decided then to put it there where we finally put it on the end of the dock. One of these great moody shots we have in the movie, and what he painted already early on. This is, again, just an inspiration of hopefully finding something like this, or for ILM to see if they can do something for us like this. And I must tell you, the two really spectacular sunset shots we have in the movie are actually really done for real. We were very lucky about that. I think we got that here on the East Coast, the more dramatic stuff.